The world is only as bright as you can see it. The world is only as bright as you can see it. For me, man, and I really want to drive this forward. So I'm gonna talk about this in a couple more videos, man. But perspective is everything. Perspective is everything. You know, some of us don't come from the just beautiful background. A lot of us are going through a lot of different things. I've been through a lot of different things. I've seen a lot of different things. Experienced trauma, carrying pain. We're wounded, and we're still going through life and have to try to smile just like everybody else who's probably went through less. But at the same time, we don't want to assume how hard it was for somebody to carry whatever they carry. We don't want to assume that, you know. So just for yourself, I just want you to reflect on your own life. And I understand a lot of us carry a lot of trauma and pain, and we're wounded. And with that, I've been telling you guys these is cognitive distortions. A lot of our thinking has been so messed up due to how life has made us, right? Due to how life has made us. And it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. And I just want to talk to you guys about a couple of these, right? Just want to talk to you guys about a couple of these because a lot of you guys might not even know. You might not even know. And I try to and I have some of these saved on my screens, on my wallpaper on my phone, to just like remind myself to stop these thinking loops. Because these things are going to be one of the forefront reasons why you are not seeing life as bright and as positive as you should. As you should, right? So listen to this as many times as you need to, right? One, all or nothing. All or nothing thinking is seeing things in black and white categories. If I'm not perfect, I'm a failure, right? If I'm not this, or if this doesn't happen, then this. It's like you're making something be this trump card. You're looking at something as this ultimate deciding factor, and you are not allowing yourself the grace to make mistakes, not allowing yourself the grace to grow, and so forth, right? So just think about anytime you're doing that, like, man, she didn't text back, she must not like me, right? That's all or nothing. Overgeneralization, taking a single event and applying it broadly. I messed up this project, I always fail, right? So you're taking one thing and you're smearing it across everything. All right. Sort of similar to all or nothing thinking, but it's overgeneralizing. You sleep in and you're like, man, I'm so freaking lazy or whatever, you know. Mental filters, focusing only on the negatives and ignoring the positives, right? That's self-explanatory. Discounting the positive, rejecting positive experiences by insisting they don't count. For example, somebody say, "Man, you're so well spoken," and you are accepting the compliment. You're just like, um, really, you think so? Sometimes I think I can sound too polished, or too proper, whatever. It's like you don't allow people to say good things to you. You always have to make them something else. Another one, jumping to conclusions, which is categorized as mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking, or fortune telling, predictive negative outcomes without evidence. This is when you are saying that X, Y, and Z is gonna happen because whatever. You don't really have a reason, and the reasons you do have aren't they can't they're not fact based. They're just based on whatever you feel or jump to conclusion. Magnification or minimization, right? Exaggerating problems or shrinking positives. This is when you are driving something so crazy like my girl's coming home late from work, she must be cheating, right? Or like shrinking something. Somebody, my girl got me flour. I mean, my girl got me like pizza or something like that. Like there must be something else going on, right? Emotional reasoning, assuming feelings reflect facts, right? I feel worthless, so I must be worthless. This is a lot of trap that a lot of guys get themselves into, right? You feel negative, so you claim this. You say that you are that thing, and this is something that's stopping a lot of people from seeing life brighter than what it is. Should statements, rigid rules for yourself or others. I should never make mistakes. I should never sleep in. I should never miss a day uploading on YouTube. I should never da 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 da. These things are taking away your joy from you, right? These should statements. Labeling and mislabeling. Attaching negative labels to yourself and others. I'm a loser. I versus I made mistakes, right? You don't want to say Again, I keep saying the sleep in thing. Y'all can tell I be struggling with that. I slept in, so I'm never gonna be successful, right? You know, 10, personalization and blame, taking responsibility for things outside your control or blaming others unfairly, right? So both sides are personalization and blame, right? And I want you guys to become familiar with these. These are essential for cognitive behavioral like therapy. A lot of people, I'm telling you, you've been through so much stuff in life that you've either developed a bit of all of these or a mix of them. And these can be very strong in your thinking that will prevent you from building a better life, feeling better about your life, and etc. And it's important that you listen to that as many times, become familiar with it, do your own due diligence on it, and try to figure out a system to start catching yourself and stop preventing yourself from doing these things over and over and over and over and over again. I promise you, a lot of conflicts, a lot of disagreements, a lot of misunderstandings all come from these specific thought errors. So just be patient with yourself as you're going through this, man. Because when I tell you that life is always supposed to be looked at as a cup half full, not half empty. There's so much possibility for you in this world. So much opportunity for you in this world. There's just so much. And so like for example, man, and it's really tough because I try not to like personalize so many things, man. I really do. Um and sometimes I get very I can get really frustrated because it's like it's so much, man. Because on one end, we're trying to make sure we are not offending people, but on the other end, we're making sure we're not being offended. And a lot of people don't take accountability for what they do or what they say. And if you're somebody who does take accountability, right, and someone says something, hey, you made me feel X, Y, and Z, you know, you have to remind yourself to one, like, be able to take ownership, but also not let them get off on what they did as well. And it's tricky because you don't want to make it seem like you're going big on big, right? Like, and like I said, a relationship where it's like, oh, you didn't do the dishes, or you didn't take out the trash, or you didn't do this. Like that's never ending. You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's a way to go about it, and I think you have to find that what works for you. And this is just being a leader or how you express these things, you know. But I think in general, you don't want to just be like walking all over people and making and like just creating chaos. But you also don't want to be somebody who's walked over. And these are the things that can make or break, like that can take away from you enjoying your life. And I was gonna tell the story, but I don't really feel comfortable yet to share this story, right? Because it's kind of fresh. I'm still kind of processing how I feel about it. And it's a situation where, um, on the team, I felt a way about how something was going, and then when it didn't fall through, I kind of felt like, man, I was right about what I was saying. And when it didn't fall through, some other stuff happened at the tail end of that kind of superseded how I felt in the first place. And I can't prove if what I was saying in the beginning was followed, but have changed the ending outcome. So that's what I mean it supersedes. So how I feel about the situation, how I felt now has to be moved to the side, but I'm still processing how I felt to insert this thing. So it's like, and the thing is more, and then my response to the thing added more frustration or pain or whatever to the team. So it's like, man, it just kind of like where I had to in that role be a better leader and address how on the team is feeling, address this bigger problem first, and then kind of find a way to address how I'm feeling. And in that moment, you just gotta hope for the same response as well. And that's what's tricky about things. Like people don't move the way that you move, but you're also still learning how to move better. And that goes into just your perspective on the world and how bright things are, because sometimes situations can happen and it can make people crash out. It can make people think the complete worst. It can make people bottle things in and just and like it can be so much other stuff. And it all comes from how we think in our mind. How bright is the world to you? How do you see the world? And I'm not telling anybody to think the world is just all bright colors, because then it's like you could be naive or green or get taken advantage of. But if you also just continuously think the worst in people and do all this other stuff as well, it's like you that's another problem within yourself that needs to be addressed to yourself. You know what I mean? You got to work on that internally. And it's like, and I mentioned like personalization, because sometimes when something does come off as like a problem, and I don't want you to take too much ownership for other things. You know what I mean? So it's like I can apologize for X, Y, and Z, but I can't necessarily apologize for um like I can apologize for how I made someone feel, but not for how they feel, because how you feel is a correlation of your thoughts and emotions and experiences and trauma and pain or whatever trigger. I don't know, right? So it's like some of that stuff is deeper. So like, and it could be, and if you let somebody, you can become the source of that thing, and it's like, and again, intentionality follows those things, right? And it's like, so it's working with people. It can be very tricky, but it also it forces you to grow. It forces you to grow. And why is this important? Because this is life in general. We're always going to be working with people in some way, shape, or form. And this growth, growing, is being put in situations that, um, for lack of better words, expose you to areas you need to grow, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, it means hurting people. It can mean frustrating people. It can mean you being hurt or you getting frustrated, and how you respond to those things. And I firmly believe that a lot of that at the core kind of stems from how you see the world. How bright is your perspective on the world, or how dark is your perspective on the world? And how can you correct that? Because it's very hard to go. I still see a lot of darkness, but the world is a lot brighter now than it was for me coming up. And I'm still working on that. And I still have to pay attention. And that's the thing. Sometimes I could be so locked in, but also sometimes I can be like almost more carefree or childlike. And it's like I can miss things. Or sometimes you're being selfish, or you're being you know, you're lacking empathy in some situations, and you're missing the wider picture. And someone can also be doing that very same thing to you, you know, but it's like some conflict is just going to be unavoidable. It's not much you can do. Um, yeah, it's a lot to think about. But all in all, I want to give you guys these tools to pay attention to yourselves and how you're going through life, and what's triggering you mentally, and how you're responding to these things emotionally, and ultimately just pulling back and figuring out how to see the world brighter, because it's rarely what you think it is.